Welcome to Penrose Point State Park.
Penrose Point State Park is a 165-acre marine and camping park on the shores of Puget Sound on the Key Peninsula. In addition to the 2 miles of shoreline, extensive walking trails, and a hidden lagoon, the park's most distinguishing feature is the long peninsula that is exposed during low tides. Because of its easy access, location, and abundance of wildlife, Penrose Point State Park is the perfect location to get your feet wet with Harbor Wildwatch. Harbor Wildwatch is a marine and environmental education organization dedicated to inspiring stewardship of Puget Sound. Our educational programs are fun, interactive, and aim to engage participants in the preservation of our natural marine resources. Our programs include informative signage at local parks and beaches, a junior naturalist training program called seaStars and Beyond for science-minded youth, and in-school workshops on 20 different marine topics. Our most well-known programs are those that involve marine invertebrates. Explore the Beach brings students on field trips to the beach. Peer into the Night places lights in the water after darkness falls. And our Get Your Feet Wet programs allow visitors an up-close look at marine life in touch tanks. Each program aims to inspire the participants to care for Puget Sound. In this video, we will share with you how to be a good guest at the beach and give you a tour through the Intertidal Zone while introducing you to the organisms you are likely to encounter there. Puget Sound was formed during the last ice age under the weight and friction of advancing and receding glaciers over 3,000 feet high. The glaciers left behind deep channels which formed an inland sea. Over the past 500 years, forces of erosion, currents, and tides have shaped the beaches, deltas, and sandspits to that which we see today. With more than 10,000 rivers and streams flowing into it, Puget Sound is the nation's second largest estuary after Chesapeake Bay. Estuaries are places where freshwater and saltwater mix together, creating a unique habitat. Many species depend on the estuary. Most notable of these are the many species of salmon that acclimate to the salinity of the ocean within the quiet harbors and bays within Puget Sound. When the tide is out, animals who live on the beach are exposed and particularly vulnerable to drying out, predation, changes in temperature and salinity, and are at the mercy of the weather. Harbor Wildwatch uses the acronym GUEST to teach good beach etiquette. G. Gently handle the animals. Touch with one wet finger. Never poke or prod an animal. U. Use your head. Most animals will be hiding under a rock. Only lift rocks smaller than your head and be sure to carefully return the rock when you are finished. E. Everything stays. Please don't move animals from their homes and leave shells to become habitat for other animals. S. Step lightly. Look carefully and try not to step on animals. Running is not safe for you or the intertidal creatures. And finally, T. Take your belongings. Don't leave behind any trash that could entangle or be consumed by wildlife. Remembering that you are a guest will help protect the important habitat of the Intertidal Zone. There are many zones on the beach. Walk slowly to notice the different animals in each zone and how one zone transitions to the next. The top of the beach is called the splash zone. The tide only reaches this area when it is at its highest. Look for the line of washed-up seaweed called the Strand Line. Slightly farther down begins the high intertidal zone. Animals common here include mussels, limpets, and barnacles. Barnacles are well suited to life here. As the tide goes out, they trap water in their shells. When the tide returns, they open and kick out their feet to catch plankton. You can find the top of the high intertidal zone by looking for the point where you no longer find barnacles. The next lowest zone on the beach is called the middle intertidal zone, characterized by the presence of green algae called sea lettuce. Seaweed, or algae, is very important and is plentiful in the intertidal zone. Algae provides food and habitat for many animals. Similar to plants, algae makes its own food from sunlight, but there is where the similarities end. Algae does not have roots, stems, or leaves, and if torn apart, continues to live. Algae is classified by its color, red, green, and brown, and all are found living together in the intertidal zone. Green algae found here is typically from the genus Ulva and is commonly called sea lettuce. Many animals utilize the sea lettuce, like this hermit crab. Turkish Towel and iridescent seaweed are two of the most easy to identify of the red algae. Many different species of kelp make up the brown algae and are found in deeper water. There is one true plant that lives underwater in Puget Sound called eel grass. Eel grass beds are the most productive habitat within Puget Sound, and you should use care not to trample the delicate blades. There are many animals who live in this zone. If you find yourself in a bed of sand dollars, only step on the dead, white or brownish skeletons, never on the fragile dark purple living ones. Many small crabs call the middle intertidal zone their home. You can find them by turning over small rocks the size of your head. If you would like to hold one, be gentle and keep the crab low to the ground so it doesn't fall. Release the crab next to the rock where you found it, and remember to gently roll the rock back into place. Because crabs need to shed their protective shell in order to grow, you may find crab molts on the beach. Often mistaken for dead crabs, these skeletons are empty inside and the crab is long gone. Look for clam siphons squirting water out as you walk. Shellfish can be plentiful in this zone. If you plan to harvest shellfish, be sure to have a license and follow guidelines outlined by Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Abide by limits and remember to fill your holes and shuck oysters on the beach. Doing so will ensure a sustainable harvest for years to come. Oyster larvae settle best on the shells of other oysters. The low intertidal zone is only exposed for a short window at the lowest tides. Seastars, once called starfish, are numerous in this zone. Because they are not fish, the name starfish has been changed to seastar. Ochre stars have 5 stout arms and are purple or ochre in color. Look for them under large boulders. Seastars, like this spiny pink star, rely on seawater to power their tube feed, and often try to outrun the outgoing tide to avoid being stranded until it returns. The tube feet are used for locomotion as well as a way to capture prey. They are carnivores and will eat whatever they can catch, including mussels, clams, and even dead fish and crab. This ochre star is dining on a dead crab and her eggs. Because the sunflower star has a flexible body and many tube feet, it is the fastest and most voracious of all the sea stars. If you find a sea star that is eating, you will see its delicate, transparent stomach protruding from the mouth. Be careful if you encounter the red rock crab, which can be identified by their distinctive red color and powerful claws with black tips. You can tell if a crab is male or female by looking at their underside. Females, like this one shown on top, will have a large flap for holding eggs. A male's flap will be much smaller. Mating occurs in the spring. Males will cradle females face to face until they molt and her eggs can be fertilized. When they are ready, the female shakes the tiny larva from her abdominal flap. Of the thousands of larvae that are produced, only a handful will survive to adulthood. Red rock crabs are most likely to be found sheltering under large rocks. Do your best not to disturb them. Black-clawed mud crabs are also common here. When flipping over a rock, pay close attention to the animals on the rock, not just what's underneath it. Many animals can be spotted here, including flatworms, jingle shells, and chitons. When you are done observing, carefully roll the rock back in place. Animals found on the top of the rock are well suited to living there, and animals attached underneath the rock can only live there. These jingle shells, a type of bivalve, prefer the dark, moist habitat underneath rocks. If the rock isn't returned to its original position, they will die. Even the keenest observers may not be able to find a moon snail, but evidence of their presence can be seen all throughout the lower intertidal zone. These large carnivorous snails prey on clams. They can use their large muscular foot to dig down in the sand and smother them, or use their sharp tongue, called a radula, to scrape a hole through the clam's shell near the hinge. When threatened, the moon snail can withdraw its foot all the way into its shell, which is sealed with a tough shield called an operculum. The operculum grows with the snail and keeps out all but the most determined red rock crab. The eggs of the moon snail are called sand collars and look like something man-made. The many thousands of microscopic eggs are sandwiched between a layer of sand and mucus on either side. Another common snail is the frilled dogwinkle. Their eggs resemble swollen grains of rice. Only on the lowest tides of the year is the subtidal zone accessible. Bubble snails lay gelatinous yellow eggs on patches of algae. The shaggy mouse nudibranch, or sea slug, can be easily observed in the springtime. They eat anemones and incorporate the stinging cells of their prey onto their backs for defense. Their eggs look like white gelatinous coils. There are many other species of nudibranch that can be found on the beach, but you will have to look very carefully as many can be tiny. This unidentified species is smaller than a grain of rice. Occasionally, beach explorers will discover fish, such as the small eel-like gunnels, tidepool sculpin, or tadpole-shaped plain-fin midshipman. These fish are guarding their territory and sometimes eggs and should never be touched or moved. As long as their skin is wet, they can survive until the tide returns. Try and find squid eggs, which form large rafts of maturing embryos in the spring and summer. The eggs are clear when they are first laid and then turn brownish as they near maturity. You may be lucky enough to see small embryos within the eggs. While you are walking on the beach, look around at the many species of birds that live in the Pacific Northwest. You can easily see crows, herons, gulls, and even bald eagles, which regularly perch in the tall trees near the beach. Bald eagles often utilize the Intertidal Zone for food. Watch as this one grabs a quick meal from the beach. Harbor seals are the most abundant marine mammal in Puget Sound. They often haul out on protected beaches at low tide to digest food, rest, give birth, or nurse young. Pupping season occurs from July through September, and often pups are left on the beach while the mother hunts. If you encounter a pup on the beach, keep your distance. It is against the law to approach them, and human encroachment can stress the pup and scare other adult seals away. As you can see, there are a lot of living organisms found on Puget Sound beaches. We hope you enjoyed this tour through the intertidal zones at Penrose Point State Park. The next time you visit a beach, please remember to be a guest while exploring to help protect these natural resources and keep our beaches and the Puget Sound healthy. Have fun and enjoy the park.